As Bui holds her new baby, she begins to appreciate the immense responsibility that comes with being a parent and decides to learn more about her parents' past.
Nam Bui, or Bo, dad, to the author, had a very painful childhood in the 1950s. Because of the war, he couldn't get enough to eat every day. One night, his father beat his mother and threw her out of the house. That day became the last time he saw his mother. He had an intense life as a refugee with his abusive father, by whom he was constantly beaten while dealing with the abject poverty and war that surrounded him. In the end, he could only leave his hometown with his grandparents. He was only 7 years old at the time.
تحية للكويت. قاطعوا هؤلاء عيال الحرام الفتالين اللي بيحاربوا الإسلام بيحاربوا النبي. هؤلاء هذا الزلمة ابن هؤلاء عيال الحرام ولا خلونا حالنا. هنسحب الآن هنسحب.
T. Bui's mother. Her name is Heng. Bui call her Ma. Ma is born to a prominent, well-connected family in Cambodia and grew up in Nha Trang, where her father works as an engineer for the French colonial government. Ma loses herself in books as a child and proves an exceptional student. She attends various French schools throughout Vietnam, which allows her to develop her own circle of friends and think freely, but also separates her from her family and challenges her sense of identity as a Vietnamese woman living under the French colonial system. Eventually, she becomes a nationalist and celebrates Vietnam's liberation from the French, but also decides that marriage equals track but education equals freedom. She wants to become a doctor and study outside of Vietnam, but ends up pursuing teaching instead.
After the raid on Loi Dong, where he was often alone during the transition to Haiphong, life began to improve for Bo. Bo's grandparents rented a place on the Rue du Commerce. His grandmother owns a convenience store in the front and a tailor shop in the back, and they send Bo to school. But as he grew older, he began to develop perceptions of the society around him. A few own all the land, too many have nothing. Bo was influenced by seeing calls for change and revolution in the newspapers. At one point, Bo dyed all his clothes black to look like a communist. Bo's grandparents didn't like that much. Then Bo's long-lost father brought him a message that Bo's father wanted to see Bo. When Bo reached his father took him to meet his father's new family. When the land reform came to Loi Dong, all the property that belonged to his grandmother was seized. If they had been there, they would have been killed. So Bo said goodbye to his father, letting him think he'd join him soon. But in his gut, he'd already said goodbye to him forever. As soon as he got home, his grandfather and he started packing. They went down to the Saigon in 1955. The French consulate gave Bo a scholarship to go to one of the wealthiest schools in Saigon, but he failed his final exam because he was sick. Then he learned about Teachers College. If you got in, they paid you a monthly stipend to go to school. The only way for Bo to have a future was to take the entrance exam, pass it, and go into teaching. Bo was overjoyed when he got in. And there, in 1962, T. Bui's father met T. Bui's mother, Ma. And they fall in love and marry, even though Ma's family were against the marriage. Then, Ma is pregnant, but later that year, they lost the baby. They went to Ha Tinh to forget about the baby, and there were 2 open teaching posts in Ha Tinh. But by this time, the chess pieces of the Vietnam War had already been set. It was 1965. American troops arrived by the tens of thousands. American planes carpet-bombed a country dependent on agriculture with napalm and the defoliant Agent Orange. The American Military Post Exchange, or PX, provides a gold mine for profiteers. People with access bought goods at a low price, then sold them at a profit to relatives and middlemen who in turn sold them at an even higher price. Amidst skyrocketing inflation, teachers' salaries stayed fixed. Bo vividly remembers the Tet Offensive of 1968. South Vietnam became a police state, and the police interrogated Bo. A general even threatened to cut his hippie hair until he pointed out that his students would note the change. In 1966, T. Bui's sister, Lan, is born. 1968, Bic, T. Bui's second oldest sister, whose name is pronounced Bic. She is born in Saigon in 1968. Tao, Ma and Bo's 4th daughter, dies in the womb for unknown reasons in 1974, the year before T. Bui is born. 1975, T. Bui is born 3 months before South Vietnam lost the war. Ma and Bo start planning to escape on a friend's boat, but the friend gets captured. The family's neighbor, a spy, hints that the same might happen to them. In preparation, Ma and Bo burn all the books in the house. Bo gets fired and nearly sent to a new economic zone, a place to do hard labor in rural isolation. The government changes the currency, wiping out the family's savings. Ma must become the sole provider for their children while Bo retreats into a deep depression. Ma sells the family's possessions to buy food, and Hai, Ma's brother, is arrested and disappears. Ma and Bo plan another escape, which also fails. Meanwhile, Bo's grandmother falls ill and Ma gets pregnant. Legally, she is required to abort, but the doctor makes an exception. Finally, some good news comes.
Muchas gracias, afición. Este para vosotros.
Not only is Hai alive, but his wife, Kyo, and her family are buying a boat and planning an escape. After a stressful day of waiting, they make it to the boat, which is full of friends and family members. They started their escape. During the escape, there are police boats nearby, so everyone worries about drawing their attention. The next day, they reach the village. About to give birth, Ma goes to the hospital while Bo stays in the village with Lan, Bitch, and T. But then, it is time for them to go to the Pulau Besar refugee camp, where Ma is supposed to meet them. They spend the day traveling there by truck and boat. When they arrived in March 1978, there were 3,000 people in the Pulau Besar refugee camp. But Ma worries about how she will raise her next baby, and Tom is soon born in the camp with the help of a Malay midwife. Tom is a boy.
T's mom, Ama, had an older sister in the US that helped them flee to the US. The Red Cross gave them tickets and immunized them, all except for Bo because he had scars on his lungs. At the airport, they had to help many people that didn't speak English, and because of that they almost missed their flight, but they still made it and met Ma's sister. But Bo had more problems getting to the US. After he was told that he was safe to go, because he also had to help people that didn't speak English, he missed the flight, but still managed to get a flight to Alaska, then to Los Angeles, finally arriving in Chicago, where a man helped him find his family.
They and their cousins live in one house with 17 people. And the kids get pneumonia. They move to a new building, but the building starts burning. The story returns to where T lays on her bed just to give birth and say her son. She realizes she wasn't prepared for this. Her son is hungrier and breastfeeding is harder than she expected. He has to stay in the hospital. Worried, she asks Ma about John Gwyn's death, and Ma remembers Gwen's last smile at her before passing away. John Gwyn is Ma and Boaz's first daughter, who falls sick and dies in infancy for unknown reasons, possibly relating to adulterated baby formula.